Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, welcome back to Soul Archaeology. I'm happy to be back here with you. I was super sick last week, so I couldn't do the podcast, and I never take weeks off, but I was just like, I need to. And I did want to remind you as well, I had a lot of people reach out asking about it, but I always post on my Instagram and the Soul Archaeology Instagram if I'm not posting an episode for the week. So just a reminder to check there. It's really the only place I can access a large group of people. So, but yeah, I just had to take the week off and honoring the body on that Taurus new moon, which was so nourishing and deep and auspicious in so many ways. But I really have to practice what I preach. And I've done this podcast for almost 3 years now, I guess. We're coming up on 3 years. And I love it so much, but I never take weeks off. And I was like, you know what? I really have to this week. And of course, it's that surrendering. And I'm just happy to be back here with all of you. So I hope you have had lovely, grounding new moon energy, although it was a very active week last week. So a lot coming up, a lot of activation, a lot of what I'm sensing is sort of very potent and confrontational illuminations. And yeah, I'm curious how it was landing for all of you. And also, we are beginning to speed up. We're moving out of Taurus energy and into the mutable air sign of Gemini this week. So things are going to accelerate. And if you've listened to this podcast regularly, if you did my 2026 forecast workshop, you know that this year was going to be very fast, especially starting end of March, April, moving into this accelerated eclipse season, and then a little bit of stabilization during Taurus season. But really, it really begins to pick up June, July, August. And we are in it, folks. We are in the portal. We do have some stabilization still. We have Mars leaving Aries, hallelujah, and entering Taurus. I think that's going to feel quite good, honestly, because we've had such fast acceleration. It's sort of like we laid on the gas really quickly. Mars in Aries is very fast, very impulsive even. It's also pushy, quite fiery and pushy. And so there's been a lot of pressure in the field to do things, to act, to change, to respond, to materialize very quickly overnight. And the reality is that a lot of that was just pressure, so now we can kind of land in a place and come back to what's real, what's actually realistic, what's actually aligned, what is wounding or external pressure, and what is real, true evolutionary pressure coming from the heart, coming from the soul, because they're very different and they feel different, but when we're in it, we can get confused. So Mars moves into Taurus this week. Venus moves into Cancer, which will also feel quite nice. Venus in Gemini is a little scattered. It's a little split, a little indecisive. It kind of wants to be all over the place. It can be fun, but in Cancer, it's really grounding. We have some water. It can also be emotional, but of course, we'll have this nice Taurus rootedness with Mars there to help balance some of that. And before I drop into the full download of the energy of this week, I wanted to mention that my one-on-one container, my one-on-one mentorship, is open for enrollment. I have a few spaces left. I'll be taking a few people this summer, which I'm very excited about because we are headed into, like I said, some pretty accelerated energy. And I love working with the people within this mentorship. I love this format. It's so nourishing. We get to go very, very deep together over 3 months. It's you and I in a container together, one-on-one, and it is accelerated in its own way. So we do a lot of deep work together. There's quantum and intuitive healing. There's a lot of somatic integration that is incorporated. So this is not just one style of healing. This is many different modalities that I'm trained in. We're working together, targeting specifically the exact patterns we'll be going into, dissolving, integrating, creating new pathways together. And funny enough, we usually find that out in the first session, if not the first, even the clarity call. So yeah, I love, love, love this style of connection and work together. I have coached hundreds of women in this format over the years, and I will be taking a break from one-on-ones this fall. So if you're wanting to work with me in, 2026, even the first half of 2027, this is your chance. I will link clarity call in the show notes. You can book a 30-minute clarity call with me, and we can kind of go over and see what moving through, what patterning is coming forward, and whether or not this is the right fit. And I will also link the page for the mentorship as well on my website. So looking forward to working with some new incredible women this summer. And I also wanted to mention I have a very big announcement on my Substack this week. So I'm linking my Substack link. It's $8 a month for paid Substack, and I do deeper dives. I share more private things, private life information on my Substack. It's also really supportive for this podcast production because I don't have sponsors, or I just create it on my own. So supporting my Substack is a way to support this podcast production. If you would like to do that, I will link it in the show notes as well. So moving into this week, I feel like I've been away for a month, even though it has been literally just a week. So it's kind of wild, but this week is active. We have a lot of interaction with Uranus and Gemini, and I talked a lot about this in my vessel group on Friday. We met, and now that Uranus is in Gemini, we'll be there for 7 years. Anything that enters Gemini will meet with Uranus, which means over the next 7 years, wherever you have Gemini in your chart, it will be highly active. Massive innovation, change, transformation, revolution will occur within that space. I did an entire episode on Uranus and Gemini. It is episode 148. So I really recommend going back and listening to that because it's going to give you some sort of foreshadowing for this week and really this Gemini season. So Uranus is currently sitting at 1 degree Gemini, which means anything that enters, crosses a threshold, ingresses into Gemini will meet with Uranus right away, which is not subtle. Uranus is not a subtle planet. It brings a lot of volatility, change, this tumultuous, jarring transformation. It does not like stagnancy. It will reveal where we're stagnant. It will dislodge that stagnancy and kind of force us into change. It's also quite innovative and expansive. Uranus is big. It's bold. Gemini is mutable air, so it's fast moving. It is technology and communication. It's curious, observant. It is about information. And so this week we have on May 15th, Mercury entering Gemini, and then immediately, like I said, meets with Uranus and Gemini. So we have Mercury entering Gemini on the 17th, and then immediately a conjunction with Uranus later that day. On May 18th, we have Mars entering Taurus and Venus entering Cancer. So there's this deepening, the stabilization. We move into earth and water from fire and air with 2 of our personal planets, our inner planets. And then, of course, on May 20th, the Sun enters Gemini and once again immediately meets with Uranus on the 22nd. So we have a Uranus Cazimi, which is when a planet meets at the center of the Sun, passes through the center of the Sun on May 22nd. So over the last month, Taurus season, we've really been in a deep study, a deep relationship with the body, understanding how to hold the intensity of the times, the heat, the pressure, the desire to react, to respond, how we stabilize that, how we move with it, how we integrate it, how we slow down, how we let the body lead, how we process intensity and emotions. So now we're taking that wisdom, the wisdom that we've gained, the body wisdom, what we've learned and integrated during Taurus season, and the sky starts to expand into more air. So ideally, we're taking this wisdom with us as things start to speed up again. There will be a desire or even a tendency, almost a default tendency to default to the mind. It's very Gemini, very mercurial. The mind is looking for solutions. It's looking to fix. It's looking to make sense. It's looking for plans, which we know, if you listen to this podcast a lot, you know that we might not have those plans quite yet. We might have to act and respond without knowing. And that all comes back down to having a really deep root, a really deep anchor, faith, trust, surrender, a belief in something outside of just the mind. But like I said, this week also contains some nice balance with mind expansion, with the Gemini energy, Uranus and Gemini activating new ways of thinking, new expansion portals. But then Mars and Venus also stabilize all of this through proper slowness, intention, embodiment, self-care, nourishment. They land in earth and water. So this week opens the mind. It's asking for expansion. It's asking for us to find new ways. Go back and listen to episode 148 if you haven't. And if you have, I would listen to it again, actually, because there is going to be a lot of Uranian energy as we move into Gemini season. We know that this time is trying to help us expand. It's helping us to grow, to find new ways, to find new portals, to open into something new. I would not be surprised if something big is announced this week, especially on the 22nd with the Uranus Cazimi, some sort of revolutionary discovery or a new technology or a new breakthrough or maybe some sort of disclosure. But we're not meant to get caught up in it or lost in it. We're meant to stay grounded here. We came to this life to experience it, to be in the body, to feel and touch our way through it. And we can't forget that when we move into Gemini season. So there's this quickening, this sense of movement returning, new thoughts, new perspectives, new connections. But at the same time, there's this deepening into the heart and into the body. So this is a reorientation. I think in some ways, this is a titration to allow us to start moving more into faster energy, into this mutable air energy. We have to start integrating Uranus and Gemini more and more. We get to download it and digest it, but also have this stabilization with Mars in the body and Venus in the heart. Mercury is at home in Gemini. It rules Gemini and Virgo. And in Gemini, Mercury is open and curious. It's fast. It's agile. This could be familiar territory. But there's something that's different because we have Uranus here. So there's some sort of disruption that's happening. Disruption of thought, pattern disruption or interruption, the breaking open of perception, how we see and experience things. There might be new breakthroughs, new pathways that open around what's possible or how you could do something. If you felt at all stuck with Mercury and Taurus or throughout Taurus season, then something might open this week. Now, this is helpful, right? We need these breakthroughs. We need to be able to see new perspectives. That's the beauty of Gemini, is that it doesn't get locked into something. It's dance of duality. It has this beautiful ability to see all different angles and all different sides. That's why it's so good at being social, and it's great at networking because it doesn't need to belong or to attach to something. Its evolutionary purpose is to remain curious and to remain open. This can also feel a little intense, maybe a little unhinged, untethered, even disorienting. It can feel like maybe there's too much coming in, or there's too many possibilities, or you can't decide. So you don't necessarily have to decide. This is a time to remain open. I think Gemini in its highest expression is open and curious. My hope is that this transit really allows us to open to new perspectives, to new ideas, to new ways, new potentials. We really need to move out of this hive mind, this echo chamber, this belief that I'm right and you're wrong. It can also reveal where we've been looping, where we might suddenly see something differently or integrate or perceive something in a new way. Channeling will be fully online this week. The mind becomes a channel. This can look like unexpected clarity or new ways of seeing, or maybe even connections you couldn't access before. This can also feel overstimulating, like too many ideas, like I said, or too much input, or wanting to act on every single thing that comes forward. This is more of a data collection time. This is more of a time for expansion, maybe not exactly implementation. I've mentioned this before, but Uranus and Gemini can be quite stimulating for the nervous system. Uranus rules the electrical systems in the body. Gemini rules the nervous system, and it can feel very electric, very fast, like your system's been upgraded, but it's moving almost in fast forward. And so that's why we really needed Taurus season, and we need the stabilization of earth and water to say, let's just slow things down. We don't have to do this all at once. We don't have to make this decision right away. We can choose when things feel more clear. Or maybe something is pressing and you do have to choose, but it's always better to do it from a grounded place, to drop in, to sink in, to connect to faith. I think I say this a lot, but we never want to make big decisions from a state of survival. When you're activated, when you're in a sympathetic or more of a dorsal state, we don't want to make big decisions because you're in a survival mode. We want to be able to return back to that threshold of regulation where we feel safe in the body, and then move from that place. If sometimes you feel like you're split on something, it's likely because when you're in fear, when you're in survival, you're experiencing it completely differently than when you are in your center, in your state of regulation. We're not meant to be in a range of regulation all the time. Of course, we need to feel a sympathetic response. We need to be able to interact with it in a healthy way. And I always think it's good if we can to make bigger decisions when we feel more safe, grounded, regulated. So this is time of observation. I think that it's a time to just notice what's coming up, how it feels to be in this faster pace energy, what it feels like to have more stimuli, more input, what it feels like to perhaps have this expansion of the mind, of potentials, of pathways, of perception. No, you don't necessarily need to do anything with it. I always laugh because I think Geminis, they always know all of the gossip. They always know what's happening. They're always aware of all the different pieces and parts. And they're not always the ones doing anything about it or acting on it or responding. So they just sort of collect information. And that's really their evolutionary purpose, because they're not here to be the Sagittarius that distills it down and pulls meaning from it. They're meant to just collect. And so be in your Gemini self this month, this season, especially this week. Just allow things to be there. Be curious, be open. Maybe be more social if it feels right. And right after Uranus and Mercury meet in Gemini, we have Mars moving into Taurus, and on the same exact day, Venus moving into Cancer. Mars has been in Aries since April 9th, so we have felt the pressure. Mars is the planet of action, will, initiation, power, life force. It's really how we move through the world. In Aries, it is free to express in its very fiery, impulsive, reactive way. It can be really helpful because it lit a fire and it created, very immediate openings and pathways for us. And it created a lot of unnecessary pressure through fear or anxiety, especially during that new moon in Aries timeline when everything was just very fast, very pressurized, very unhinged. And now we're moving into a stabilized energy of Taurus. And Mars in Taurus is a little bit, it's a lot more anchored. It's moving into fixed Earth. It doesn't necessarily like being here because it's not as mobile, it's not as free, but there's an anchoring here. After months of fire, action slows down. It gets to breathe. It gets to move with more intention, maybe. It gets to think before responding. It's always concerned with sustainability. So it's conservative in this way. It likes to just know what's ahead. It likes to know what it's getting into. It likes to plan. It likes to move from a space of consistency, dependability. It's much slower here. Now, my clients who have Mars and Taurus, they tend to feel stuck sometimes making decisions. They're slow to make decisions, or they feel like they need a lot of data and information to know whether something's right. That's not bad, right? It's just it's a different way of interacting with Mars energy. It can bring up frustration and resentment because you don't move as fast as other people, perhaps, or it takes you longer to decide. But what's wanting to happen is there's wanting to be a big yes in the body. There's wanting to be more clarity before reacting and responding. So this transit can bring up some frustration or even slowness or feeling stuck. But with the juxtaposition between Mercury and Gemini, Mars and Taurus, it's going to be an interesting flow because we have fixed earth and mutable air. So you might think something and want to do it right away, but it's just not going to work because the body needs more information. It needs more data. It wants to move slower. So there's a bit of a push and pull here. There's a bit of a start-stop. One foot is on the gas, one foot is on the brake. I actually think this is really helpful. It's a bit of check and balance energy because we need some more slowness. Mars and Taurus is going to be helpful. Mars is going to move into Gemini, of course, after this, and that's when things really accelerate. But just use this energy. Let it work with you, or let it work through you. It's asking, are you forcing something? Or are you building something? Is it sustainable? Are you overriding your body or really listening to it? That same day, on the 18th, we have Venus entering Cancer. And so we get the activation of the emotional body. Cancer is belonging, home, the mother, the heart. It's about safety and security, emotional intelligence. It's ruled by the moon. So Venus is moving into a lunar sign. So the mind is opening and expanding rapidly. The heart is softening. Venus in Cancer is really protective and intuitive and deeply feeling. This is a call to return to nourishment, to return to care, to return to home, what home feels like in the body. Jupiter's still in Cancer. We have this last stretch of this beautiful Jupiter in Cancer transit. So Venus and Jupiter will meet in June together. They will conjoin in June, which is one of the most auspicious days of the year when those two meet. This can also look like closing off, shutting down, retreating too quickly, protecting instead of relating. So Venus here wants to relate. She wants to feel safe to connect. She wants to feel nourished. She wants to feel cared for. And we know that care that we seek from others really has to be established and cultivated within first in order to even receive it from others. So this will be a return to the heart. This can also bring up heart walls, where we're holding heart walls. If you listen to this podcast for a while, you know I love to talk about heart walls. And heart walls really develop when we have fears, when we have experiences in past lives, ancestry, or earlier in this lifetime that were painful, too painful, in fact. It's when trauma occurs around the heart. And what happens is that there's so much grief, there's so much pain that we can't digest in the moment. So a calcification occurs around the heart. I work on heart walls in almost every session that I do, and I find it so incredible because they just are, when they're ready to dissolve, they'll dissolve. And they always come through when we've been doing deeper inner child work, deeper heart work together for a while. When there's enough safety in the system to drop that protective layer, that calcification, to open to love. So heart walls protect, and they were needed at a certain point, whenever that was, right? But now, when you're ready to open to love, I usually tell people, have you looked at your heart walls? Are you aware of the ways you're protecting, the ways you're shutting down, the ways you're walling off? That protection might not be needed any longer. And the paradox is that the ways we protect ourselves are also the ways that we keep out what we truly desire, the ways we want to be loved, the ways we want to be cared for. And so this can be a tender time. This Venus in Cancer transit can be tender. I think it will be heart opening. I think there will be opportunities to soften, to open to receive in the highest expression. Cancer feels safe enough. She's cultivated enough safety to feel safe enough to open to receive. When we think about the highest archetype of the mother, it's that she's self-resourced, she is nourished, and she opens to receive from others, not just give. So the planet of love and relationship and relating and values will be in the sign of Cancer, and we'll have to look at where we are perpetuating our pain points, where we are creating cycles of pain and disappointment and grief out of fear. And I will say these are some of the most painful patterns to acknowledge, but they're also where we have breakthroughs, because when we can have the self-awareness and the emotional intelligence to say, I am creating this pattern through this very sneaky subconscious pathway, then we can change it. We reclaim our power. And then right after that, on May 20th, we of course have Gemini season. So the sun shifts into Gemini and the energy becomes more external, more dynamic. Like I said, Gemini opens pathways, it opens options and possibilities. There's a fast mutability here. So things can change quickly, especially because, like I said, Uranus is in play as well. The sun is exploratory here. So we're opening to new potentials, to new ways, to new ideas, to new timelines. I think Venus in Cancer is going to enable us to take the heart into consideration when opening to these new pathways, bring it through the channel of the heart, slowing things down a little bit and saying, how do I feel about this? Yes, it might be a new option that I didn't consider before. Wow, something is coming into my field very quickly. I didn't expect this, but is it actually aligned? Is it actually right? Is it aligned with the past or with a wound, or is it actually aligned with my heart? That Uranus Cazimi that we have on the 22nd is intense. And it's always intense. Uranus Cazimis are always intense. I think it's, like I said, probably going to be used as a day of disclosure or announcing something or accelerating something or putting something into play, into motion. This is an awakening through the mind. Something could click, something could shift in your direction. Like I said, something could open, new possibilities and potentials, new ways of seeing yourself, of understanding yourself. Uranus is not slow. It's sudden and fast and confronting and clear. And when a planet moves through the heart of the sun, there is a rebirth. So something's being rebirthed, something is being cleared, something is being opened. Like I said, we want to pay attention to this. Where Gemini lands in your chart is really going to determine what's coming up for you. So what is coming up for you? What is alive for you at the moment? Where in your chart do you have Gemini? There's certainly going to be an opening here. There's going to be an acceleration. There's going to be pressure to maybe do something or decide something, but just know that might not be real. So check in with the heart, check in with the body, slow things down. The mind always wants to figure things out. It always wants to make sense of things. It always wants to decipher and define, but let your body set the pace. Let your heart stay engaged. Let your heart be the channel of truth. You do not need to decide anything immediately right away. You have agency, you have power, you have the ability to decide how you want to interact with something, what you want to choose, the pace at which you choose and respond. I say this all of the time, but we are working to be conscious warriors. We are working to be more conscious beings, conscious choosers. We are working to align our heart with our actions, and we're in training ground, so we have a lot of Aries energy. I've talked about this a lot, and this is part of the deal where everything's accelerating. We're having to return back to our own truth channel and choose from a place of integrity, of heart, and our own personal truth, alignment, and responding from that place. So the card that I pulled for today for the Soul Archaeology community From the Untamed Elemental deck is the Sun card, which I just love because we are in a Cazimi week and the Sun's entering Gemini. We are in the Northern Hemisphere moving towards summer. We're, of course, still in spring until June, but the Sun is active and the Sun is building and the days are longer. This card is all about divine service. And it says, as the star at the center of our solar system, a fiery traveler of timeless confidence and force, Sun unifies the planets through gravity and light. Illuminating and supreme, he devours the shadows. His circulating heat is all-powerful and offers the understanding that to honor the divine within and all around us, we must all serve. Sun reveals that by giving undivided attention to your inner luminosity, you free it to shine outward, illuminating the way for others. This is just the way of life. We evolve to serve. Just as Sun's light serves all life on earth, your light serves all whom you know. Continue to invigorate your inner light so that you become a pharos of clarity and wisdom. This is not a purely selfless path. As you offer your service, its radiating warmth is reflected back by all who benefit, and you are remunerated in multiples. When it's balanced, you're serving from a place of wholeness. When it's imbalanced, you have selfishness, self-serving attitude, self-sacrifice. To bring into balance, develop the art of gracefully receiving to instill the felt sense of what it's like to accept from others openly and then give in return. It was so nice to be back with you. Thank you for being here, as always. Thank you for sharing. If you listen to this weekly, please write a review, subscribe, maybe share with a friend, share on social media. It really helps the podcast to grow. If you listen regularly and you want to join my Substack, there will be a big announcement there this week. So I just love to connect with you guys in all the ways. So thank you for being here. Have a beautiful, beautiful week, and I'll see you soon.